My name is Sarah and I work as an office assistant at Bright Tech Solutions, a small tech company filled with bright-eyed employees. In my role, I manage schedules, take care of calls, and support my busy team. At first, I loved my job, the friendly chatter, the shared laughter in the lunchroom, and the excitement of new projects were a daily thrill. However, recently something shifted in the air. The usual warmth of my workplace felt colder, and whispers of distrust echoed between my colleagues. Today, as I entered the office, I noticed the tense atmosphere surrounding our open cubicles. I could sense that changes were coming, and I braced myself to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. Today was the day I had to present our team's project to our manager, Mr. Larson. I had prepared for weeks, but now, as the clock ticked closer to the meeting time, doubts bubbled up in my mind. What if I stumbled over my words? What if I couldn't explain the project clearly? I bit my lip and glanced at my coworker, Maria, who seemed peaceful and confident. "Hey Sarah, you're going to do great," she said, noticing my nervousness. Her smile was reassuring, but my heart raced even faster. I nodded but didn't truly believe her. My hands felt clammy as I shuffled my notes one more time. Would they admire my hard work? Or would they find it lacking? The fear of judgment loomed over me. Finally, it was time for the meeting. Mr. Larson entered the room, his usual serious expression making my anxiety grow. He nodded at us, and then it was my turn to speak. I stood up, my hands shaking slightly as I held the notes. As I began to articulate the key points of our project, a software update intended to enhance user experience, I could see his brow furrowing. My voice wavered as I pointed out the benefits we had carefully outlined. We believe this update will make our application easier to use and, improve customer satisfaction," I stammered. Then came the dreaded question that shattered my composure. Mr. Larson leaned forward and asked, "What specific metrics will you use to measure this improvement?" I had anticipated some questions, but this one caught me off guard. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks and a wave of panic washed over me. I hesitated, struggling to maintain my thoughts. We will compare sales data?" My eyes darted to my notes, but it was as if the answer had vanished. "Sales data is crucial, but what about user feedback?" He probed further, and I felt utterly small. "You must know how customers feel to get the real picture." My mind raced back to Robert, our lead developer, who had suggested user surveys. I didn't include that in my presentation. What if I appeared unprepared? I nodded silently. As the meeting dragged on, I could feel timid glances from my coworkers, and I knew they were concerned. The weight of self-doubt wrapped itself around me like a heavy blanket. Every question from Mr. Larson felt like a flash of lightning, illuminating my weaknesses. After what seemed like an eternity, I sat down, wishing I could disappear. When the meeting ended, Maria joined me. "Don't be too hard on yourself, Sarah. Everyone has tough days. You'll get better at it with practice." Although her words were meant to comfort me, I couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment. I had let my fears take control, and I worried this was just the beginning of my struggles at Bright Tech Solutions. My mind buzzed with frustration and uncertainty, and I realized I might need to change my approach if I was to survive in this unpredictable workplace environment. That afternoon, I sat at my desk, my mind racing after the morning meeting. I felt the weight of Mr. Larson's expectations pressing down on me like a 100-pound backpack. Just as I began to gather my thoughts, my computer pinged with a new email from him. My heart sank as I opened it, realizing that the next deadline for our project had been moved up by almost a week. "In order to meet client demands," he wrote, "we need to deliver this update sooner. Please have your parts ready by Friday." Panic set in as I read his words again. Friday? That was just 2 days away. I took a deep breath and tried to process how to manage this new challenge. I glanced over at Maria, who was busy typing away. She seems to have it all together, I thought. I envied her focus. Meanwhile, my thoughts were scattered like leaves in the wind. As I turned to my project notes, I heard a voice behind me. It was Jess, one of the more outspoken members of our team. "Sarah, I hope you're ready to pull your weight. This new deadline is tough, and we expect everyone to do their part," she said, her tone sharp and demanding. I forced a smile, but inside I felt a wave of irritation. Jess always had a way of making things feel unbearable. "Of course I'm ready," I replied, trying to mask my growing anxiety. Instead of feeling supported, I suddenly felt more pressure. I had to show everyone that I could handle this challenge, but doubts flooded back in. What if I let them down again? After a tense hour of staring at my work, my phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Larson. "I need brief updates on everyone's progress," it read. Just the thought of writing an update made my heart race. I was struggling to keep everything together, and now I had to prove that I was on track. The longer I thought about it, the more I could feel my chest tighten with stress. Existing fears mingled with this new anxiety, but I knew I had to pull myself together. I needed clarity to navigate this storm. Grabbing my notes, I jotted down all the tasks I needed to complete. Suddenly, I realized something. Instead of waiting in silence, I could reach out for support. Gathering my courage, I decided to approach Maria. "Hey, can we go over the project together?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. "I feel overwhelmed and could really use a second pair of eyes." Her smile was warm and she nodded eagerly. Thankful, I felt a flicker of determination inside me. Working with Maria not only helped ease my stress, but also reminded me that it was okay to lean on others when things got tough. I decided right then that I had to reframe my mindset. I couldn't let fear control me. To get through this, I needed a plan and teamwork. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to step up and face this challenge head-on. The day had arrived. It was Friday, and the deadline for our project was fast approaching. I woke up feeling a mix of excitement and dread. My heart raced as I recalled last week's meeting and how unprepared I felt. But I managed to find focus and clarity during my time teaming up with Maria. And I hoped I was ready now. Deep down, though, uncertainty lingered. As I walked into the office, I could feel the tension in the air. Colleagues rushed past me, their faces drawn with worry. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I had done my best to prepare. I reached my desk, laying out my materials, but just as I was about to dive into my final task, Jess stopped by again. "You better not hold us back, Sarah. We all need to make this work," she said, her words biting. Heat rushed to my cheeks, but I recognized that she was just stressed. I decided to ignore her comment and focus on cranking out the last details for our presentation. I tuned out her doubts and threw myself into my work, typing furiously. Hours passed, and soon it was time for the final project review meeting. I walked into the conference room with a knot of nerves in my stomach. Mr. Larson sat at the head of the table, flipping through papers, and my colleagues gathered around, their faces slipping between determination and anxiety. At that moment, I could feel a storm brewing inside me, like a wave ready to crash. When it was my turn to present, I stood up and faced the group. My hands were clammy, but I took a deep breath and summoned every ounce of courage. "Our software update will improve user experience significantly," I began, clutching my notes tightly. I moved through each section calmly but could feel my heart racing. As I began to speak about user feedback, Jess interrupted. "That's fine, but can you explain more about the metrics for success?" Her tone was harsh, and I felt my heart drop. Flashbacks of our last meeting flooded my mind, reminding me of how I froze then. This time I knew I had to fight my fears with confidence. "Yes, Jess," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "We will create specific surveys to gather direct feedback from users after the update. Based on the responses, we will gauge satisfaction levels and improvements." Mr. Larson nodded. He seemed engaged, but the real challenge came when one of my other coworkers chimed in. "What if the update causes issues instead? We can't afford to fail." Their concern echoed loudly, making my stomach flip again. In that moment, I realized I was holding my breath. I took another deep breath and spoke directly from my heart. "That is always a risk in software upgrades," I acknowledged. "But we are learning from past experiences. Our goal is to minimize any potential problems. With all the hard work and collaboration put into this project, I believe we are ready." A hopeful light grew within me, and suddenly, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. All my doubts and fears faded into the background. If I believed in my team and our project, I could push through anything. It was my moment to stand up, face my fears, and embrace the challenge. The room fell silent, and I focused on the sense of empowerment coursing through me. I was no longer just the person who worried or hesitated. I was taking charge. Today mattered, and I was ready to give it my all. I finished my presentation, and for a moment the room fell silent. The air felt thick as everyone processed what I had just said. My heart pounded in my chest, and I held my breath, waiting for a response. Would my team react positively? Or had I just made everything worse? I could feel my palms sweating and my mouth going dry. Finally, Mr. Larson leaned back in his chair and nodded thoughtfully. "That was quite insightful, Sarah," he said, surprising me. It shows that you truly understand the project and the challenges we face. I appreciate your confidence in both the team and the plan." I blinked in disbelief, but as I looked around the room, I noticed nods of approval and smiles from my colleagues. Jess's expression softened, too. "I didn't realize how much thought you'd put into it. The user feedback idea is a smart approach," she admitted, and her acknowledgement felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The moment I had been dreading turned into an unexpected wave of support. I felt a warm rush of pride fill me as I realized I had not only met the challenge but had also won respect from my peers. With each smile from my coworkers, I felt something shift within me. The self-doubt that had lingered for weeks began to fade. I had approached a moment of fear with determination and passion, and it had paid off. I had stepped in front of them not just as an assistant but as a contributor to our team's success. But along with the pleasantries came the other side of the spectrum, Mr. Larson clarified. "However, we need to recognize that with time constraints, challenges may arise. We still have a lot of work to do before launch." His tone turned serious again, yet it wasn't without hope. He looked me in the eyes. "Sarah, I expect you to take charge of the user survey process. It's your moment to lead, and I trust you can manage it effectively." I nodded, swallowed hard, and felt a mix of excitement and fear swirl in my gut. Heading a project aspect meant more responsibility. "Yes, I'll make sure it gets done," I replied, surprising even myself with the confidence in my voice. As the meeting continued, discussions moved to specific tasks and deadlines. I listened attentively, grateful for the newfound respect I had earned and energized by my team's support. Questions bubbled up inside me, but instead of hesitating, I raised my hand whenever I had a thought. With each question I voiced, my confidence grew, and I realized I had important things to share. After the meeting, Maria came over with a proud smile. "You really owned that, Sarah. I knew you had it in you." Her words caused my heart to swell. It became clear at that moment that I was not just surviving, but truly discovering my own strength and abilities. I walked to my desk, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Despite fears of past struggles, I was finally learning that it was acceptable to face challenges and push through them. I was learning that growth often comes from uncomfortable moments, and breaking through self-doubt turned out to be my biggest victory. My heart swelled as I promised myself that I would fully embrace each challenge that came my way, one goal at a time. In the days that followed the meeting, I found myself in a state of reflection. The weight on my shoulders felt lighter now, and the respect I had gained from my colleagues carried me through each day. As the project continued to unfold, I took every task seriously, but I also embraced the encouragement I received. One afternoon, after a long day of gathering feedback from users, I sat down with Maria in the break room. "Thank you for being there for me," I said, stirring my coffee thoughtfully. "I wouldn't have spoken up if I hadn't felt your support before that meeting." Maria smiled, her eyes bright with understanding. "You earned that strength, Sarah. You just had to find it inside yourself," she replied. Her words resonated deeply with me. I had spent so long doubting my capabilities that I had almost overlooked the courage I had built over time. As we sat in comfortable silence, I realized how important it was to surround myself with supportive people. "It's funny. I used to think asking for help was a weakness," I mused. "But now I see it as a way to channel our strengths into success." "Absolutely," Maria agreed. "Collaborating is how we grow together as a team. We're all in this together." Her words struck me like a lightning bolt. This change in my perspective was significant. I had always believed that I needed to travel this journey alone, but the truth was that collaboration was where real strength lay. I started to remember all the times I had witnessed our team pull together, lean on each other, and rise to every challenge. With renewed energy, I made a conscious effort to involve others in my projects. I reached out to different team members for their advice, insights, and ideas. One afternoon, while discussing the user survey findings with Robert, our lead developer, I shared an observation that stood out to me. "I've noticed users are mainly interested in speed but also need a friendly interface," I said, expecting a nod. Robert responded, "That's insightful. Addressing both those areas will help us meet user needs." With his recognition, my confidence flourished even more. Each positive interaction encouraged me to trust my instincts and continue to solidify my newfound belief in myself. After weeks went by, the upcoming project deadline drew nearer. During this final stretch, I continuously reminded myself to breathe, face challenges head-on, and maintain open communication with my team. No matter how high the pressure rose, I knew I did not have to shoulder it alone. During our final review meeting, as we shared the adjustments to the project based on user feedback, I felt proud. I looked around the room, observing my colleagues' enthusiasm as they contributed their ideas. It was evident we were no longer just working as individuals. We were thriving as a unified team. Later, after the project concluded and settled well, Maria suggested we go for a small team celebration. "We did this together," she exclaimed. As I sat amidst laughter and camaraderie, I realized I had transformed. A once timid assistant had grown into a confident and capable contributor. I no longer viewed my workplace as just a place to earn a living, but as a community where we uplift each other. The experience had not only sharpened my skills but taught me invaluable lessons about collaboration, courage, and believing in my own potential. In the weeks following our project's success, I found myself approaching work with a newfound sense of purpose and confidence. Every morning as I walked into Bright Tech Solutions, I noticed my posture was a little taller, and my smile a little brighter. This change wasn't just about me. I felt it in the energy of the entire office. People seemed more connected, sharing ideas and helping each other out more than before. I started a small habit each morning of jotting down a few things I was thankful for. It helped me center my thoughts and remember why I loved my job. Today, I'm grateful for my supportive team. I would write, along with other simple joys. Keeping this practice became a steady reminder of how far I had come and how much I valued collaboration and connection. As the weeks progressed, I also noticed my approach to challenges shifting. One day, I was assigned to organize a workshop for our group focused on a new tool we were considering for efficiency. In the past, the thought of running such an event would have terrified me, but now I saw it as an opportunity. A chance to share knowledge and contribute to our team's growth. Before planning the workshop, I reached out to my teammates for their input. "What topics do you think we should cover?" I asked during our daily team huddle. It felt wonderful to invite collaboration instead of feeling like I had to do it all myself. Each person shared their ideas, bringing forth a mix of perspectives. With each suggestion, I knew that together we could create a more engaging and useful workshop. As I began drafting the agenda, I felt energized rather than anxious. I was excited about sharing what I had learned, while also learning from my colleagues. It was a pure joy to balance my ideas with theirs. When the day of the workshop came, I stood at the front of the room, not feeling nervous like before, but rather eager to share. I engaged everyone, asking them to participate and share their experiences with the tool. "Let's discuss how we all can implement this together," I encouraged, and I watched as my coworkers responded with enthusiasm. After the workshop, several colleagues came up to express their gratitude. "You made it really easy to understand," one of them said with a friendly smile. "I love that you included our thoughts." Hearing their feedback filled me with joy and pride. It was rewarding to realize that I made an impact, not just through my efforts but by valuing everyone's voice. With every new task, I made an effort to include my coworkers, to listen genuinely and invite their contributions. I became more willing to share my ideas without holding back. My fear of judgment was diminished, replaced by a genuine desire to improve as a team. I understood that learning from each other would only lead to better outcomes. On my personal reflection notes, I began writing not just what I was thankful for but also my evolving goals. I want to become a reliable point of support for my colleagues. I reflected on this often and acknowledged the shift in my mindset from needing to prove myself to celebrating our progress as a collective. Every interaction felt like an opportunity, and I embraced each with a positive attitude. Collaboratively, we were the driving force behind our projects. This realization sparked not just a change in my behavior, but an entirely new way of thinking. I felt part of something much larger than myself. The journey had transformed from one steeped in fear and doubt to a shared adventure built on trust, friendship, and success. I had found my voice and in doing so encouraged others to find theirs too. As the months drew on, I found myself reflecting on how much I had changed since my early days at Bright Tech Solutions. Each challenge that had once seemed daunting now appeared as an opportunity for growth. I stood at the window of my office, looking out at the busy streets below, A sense of calm washing over me. My confidence grew not just through successful projects, but through the lasting relationships I had built with my coworkers. I often recalled how the supportive words from Maria had changed everything for me. Inspired by her kindness, I started to offer help and encouragement to others. Whether it was being attentive during their presentations or giving feedback on their projects, I found joy in helping those around me succeed. The office felt more like a community, and I was proud to be an active participant. One day in our team meeting, Mr. Larson announced that we would be working on a major project for an influential client. In the past, the mere thought of such a project would have sent my heart racing with anxiety. However, as he outlined the goals, I could feel a sense of excitement surge through me instead. I raised my hand to propose ideas on how to approach the client's needs, sharing insights gleaned from our previous feedback sessions. Surprisingly, I received a positive response. "Great suggestions, Sarah," Mr. Larson said, nodding approvingly. It felt empowering to be recognized for my contributions and to know that my voice mattered. I could feel the respect I had earned and the trust our team had placed in me begin to solidify. In the days that followed, I dove into my role with renewed passion. Alongside my coworkers, we planned our strategies and tackled challenges as a unit. We scheduled regular check-ins to monitor our progress, and I felt proud to spearhead those discussions. Every step we took together reinforced my belief in the value of collaboration and open communication. This project became a symbol of everything I had learned: facing my fears, trusting others, and most importantly, trusting myself. At the community coffee shop where I'd once sat in silence, I began to meet with other team members regularly. I suggested a new initiative where we share our weekly wins and setbacks over coffee to learn from each other. It wasn't just about work. It became a space for sharing ideas and experiences beyond business hours. Each gathering filled me with hope and excitement for what lay ahead, reinforcing that growth can be a shared journey. Looking back, each moment of doubt had played a part in shaping who I was now, a capable, confident member of a dynamic team. I understood that no one was perfect and that mistakes would happen, but they were an integral part of the process. The connection between my colleagues became a source of strength, and that camaraderie cleared the way for us to take bold steps forward. As I sat down to write my reflections that evening, I realized I wasn't alone on this path. Nobody had to be perfect. Growth meant learning from every experience and showing resilience in the face of challenges. I felt more than capable. I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. I envisioned new projects, long-term friendships, and endless possibilities flowing from my experiences. With my spirit lifted and my heart open, I knew that this was just the beginning. The journey of growth was ongoing, and each challenge was an invitation to continue evolving.